Alrighty, time to get some convo going once again for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario. OakRidgeFord.com. I'm Norm along with Mike. Happy Independence Day to my American brethren. Michael, it seems like it's been forever. Oh, I know. Oh, your heart is melting.
I feel so loved and happy, belated happy Canada Day for members of the Convo Nation.
Yeah, and I was waiting for that. I didn't think you were going to add that to the mix, but I'm overjoyed now. It's been 2 weeks since we were last together, still lamenting the Leafs loss and keeping our fingers crossed that the Bleu Blanc et Rouge didn't go all the way to win a 25th Stanley Cup and down 3-0 to the Lightning in the Stanley Cup final. It looks like they will not get that 25th Stanley Cup. And let's be bratty and let's be petulant and let's be saucy and let's be a bunch of whiny fans in the moment and rejoice in the fact that the Leafs' hated rival is about to fall flat in the final.
I am the king of Schadenfreude. I'm sorry, but there is, and it has to, for many members of Leaf Nation, you sort of have to be that because you can't take any joy in the success of your own franchise, so you have to take joy in the demise of others.
It's true. It's totally true. You and I do speak between shows, and I'll ask you about the Habs, and you'll, with an expletive, respond. Going back to the fandom, Mike, I know that you just didn't want to see any success for the Habs, regardless of your animosity towards the Maple Leafs, and this being a potential lesson for them. For me, I'm just desensitized to it. I don't know if it's my age, if it's the fact that I'm not working in sports on a daily basis, but part of me wanted the Habs to succeed in the Stanley Cup final, and an even smaller part of me wanted them to win it so I could rub it in, not necessarily the OGs and converts' faces throughout the summer months, but kind of use it as a there on a lesson, a I told you so directed towards the organization. Doesn't look like I'll get that chance, but we can still use this as a an example of how the Leafs have failed, and even with all the hype and the pomp and the pageantry and the expectation, teams that you think you're better than, if they work harder and are opportunistic, will go further than teams that have a ton of talent and potential on paper, but just can't get the job done.
Well, I mean, that lesson that you're talking about, to me, is counterbalanced by the misery that every Leaf fan would have from their Hab friend, next door neighbors, people they work with, rubbing it in their faces that the Canadians won the first Stanley Cup by a Canadian team in 28 years. There's nothing that can equal that misery and that annoyance. So that's why, I wouldn't have a problem with, say, Calgary or Winnipeg winning a Stanley Cup because they're sort of innocuous franchises. But Edmonton, they've won their quota with Wayne Gretzky back in the 80s. Vancouver, there's just a natural hatred. I think that bi-coastal thing with Toronto and the Habs and the Senators, they're members of the Canadian fraternity in the Atlantic Division. And I'm sorry, to me, I don't think anybody who can call themselves a true Leaf fan can be rooting for the Habs to win a Stanley Cup. This thing of all unite behind the one Canadian team, bull crap. I'm sorry. It's like, there are 7 distinct fan bases in Canada, and if members of one fan base start rooting for members for the team of the other, I think they're turncoats, but that's just my opinion. But I when I was a fan, I couldn't do it, and I just don't understand it. Like, I could not root for the Buffalo Sabres to win a Stanley Cup if they're in a Stanley Cup final, and that's the city that I'm from, because I'm sorry, that's not the team that I rooted for.
Spoken so emphatically on Independence Day, turncoats. I love the term, Mike. I'm sure there have been some defectors Leaf fans who said they've had enough of the Habs, wanting to go to become fans of other teams, and in particular the Canadians over the last month, and probably are now regretting that decision and looking for a way to weasel their way, back into Leafs society.
Well,
just one more thing. And here's the thing. A Leaf fan base is so divisive. So I don't necessarily feel a kinship or a friendship or a camaraderie with a lot of Leaf fans, because let's face it, a lot of Leaf fans hate each other. There's a complete dislike, and there's a disagreement on the philosophy that this team should employ to achieve that success. So I'm saying, when the Leafs aren't able to be successful using the method of the day, where I'm coming from is, okay, well, I told us so. I fucking told us so. So if the Leafs' hated rival can win a Stanley Cup and not be nearly as good, but play a style of hockey we think actually produces results in the playoffs, then it's not good for us. It's good for them, and it's good for us in terms of a lesson learned in the end. And I still think the Leafs hopefully have learned a lesson from this, and that's where I'm coming from. Not supporting the Habs, but kind of turning back and going, "See, guys, this is not how you win. This is not how you win."
Well, I mean, there is a sectionalization of the Leaf fan base. I mean, if you want to, the last 3 days, or me being the history buff that I am, that was the 3 days of the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, and it's like, there's definitely a section of the Leaf fan base that you would describe as the Union, and the other as the Confederacy, and they're at war with each other because of certain things that we won't go into right now. But then, after the war, they come back, they come together as one whole United States. So I just look at this whole situation. And, I give credit to the Canadians. They came back from 3-1 against the Leafs. The Leafs were responsible for that loss. The Habs benefited from, they did what they needed to do, but the Leafs didn't. And that's the reason why Montreal got the impetus to then beat Winnipeg and then beat Vegas. I don't know if the Leafs would have beaten Vegas. Maybe they could have, maybe they couldn't have. But I do know that Tampa is the best team.
Yep.
In the playoffs. They are, they're destroying the Habs right now. And one thing that I did this as an interesting little exercise. The Habs have no former Leafs on their roster. None. Zero. Nobody who's ever played for the Leafs before is on the Canadians right now. Tampa Bay does. If Tampa Bay wins, which they probably are going to, that will mark, and I only went back to the beginning of the century, 2000. There has been an ex-Leaf on every Stanley Cup champion, either before they played for the Leafs or after they played for the Leafs, an ex-Leaf on every single team in the 21st century. And if I look at my blog on Hockey Buzz, but going to Victor Stahlberg in 2013 for Chicago, or Travis Boyd with Washington in 2018, or now this year Luke Schenn will win his second cup, and so will Curtis McElhinney. Every team had an ex-Leaf, and that that's great for them, but not great for the team that they formerly or futurely, if that's a word, played for.
Joe Shedler, I don't mesh well with many Leaf fans. Way too emotional, hold grudges too long, can't see the logic. That's what a fan is about. Our friends and our compatriots are guilty of it, and so are we. How illogical were fans in their disdain for the team, certain players, after the Leafs blew that 3-1 series lead to the Habs. And then as time goes on, we start thinking a little straighter, and now we get back to the drawing board, as fans, in terms of reassessing and reorganizing our relationship with the team, and that's what we're doing. There's a collective sigh of relief that it looks like the Leafs rival is not going to win a Stanley Cup, and we're not going to have to hear Habs fans go on about this divine right. However, fans can still stick it to other fans that their team went further.
Habs fans are going to have the advantage on Leaf fans no matter what, because they beat the Leafs in the playoffs. I mean, everybody realizes that. But I mean, they would have the last laugh if they did win the cup. So that's why I think the motivation for most Leaf fans is to see the Habs go down in painful defeat. And relish in that, so that they can say, well, we didn't lose, we lost to you, but you didn't win a cup, so enjoy.
They still have 4 chances to win that cup, down 3-0 to the Lightning, and with Game 4 tonight in Montreal. So throughout the season and all of the podcasts we were able to produce, we would talk about the Leafs and how they stack up with the North, and how we think they would have done versus the top teams throughout the league. Clearly, more of a concept and an idea and a projection, because obviously the Canadian teams were confined to playing each other. Mm-hmm. But we would ask how Toronto would stack up against Tampa, and we would draw similarities to the game, being high octane offense with lots of skill, lots of speed, and if the Leafs could draw some of the details from Tampa's playbook beyond what they already had, that would benefit them. Well, here we are, Tampa's 60 minutes of winning hockey away from their 2nd straight cup. Mm-hmm. No matter the Leafs' failure in the first round, what did the Leafs have that Tampa has? And more importantly, what does Tampa have that's put it over the edge almost twice now that the Leafs won't have when they start the season and will have to develop?
Well, remember, before they made, and you can't minimize the effect that the players that they added before the season last year and during the year that got them their first Stanley Cup. Tampa Bay added Blake Coleman, who scored that fantastic goal in Game 2. Barclay Goodrow. They traded the equivalent of 3 first-round picks. I think it was Nolan Foote, a first-round pick for Coleman, and a first-round pick for Goodrow. That's paying through the nose, and the reason they paid through the nose is because their salaries were low. But they added those 2 players. They signed Zach Bogosian off the termination contract from Buffalo near the end of the year, near the deadline, and they brought in Pat Maroon. So after losing to Columbus, and Columbus played the way Columbus played against the Leafs, which was physical, defensive, and you have a really talented offensive team, but that could be shut down by physical hockey. The Lightning management, led by first Steve Yzerman and then Julien Brisebois, added sandpaper, added that other aspect, making that team multidimensional. And if you've seen what they've done in the playoffs this year, they can play a shutdown game. If you want to play that game, they can play that game, and they can play a wide open offensive game. They're multifaceted. Toronto can play the wide open game. They've gotten better at playing the shutdown game, but they're not really good at it. And we've seen instances, and we've seen. There are not many instances in this playoff where Tampa Bay has just checked out and they've just not shown up. And we know what happened in Game 5, 6, and 7. The Leafs didn't show up for the first period in Game 5, didn't show up for the first half of the game in Game 6, and then Game 7 they didn't show up at all. And that's inexcusable. But that's what Tampa Bay did. They assembled they put together the missing pieces, and they put together a perfect engine.
That's what a winner does, Mike. They won last year in front of no one, a wacky tournament that was put together with the intention of just capping a season that was cut off abruptly because of COVID. People would look at it and go, that doesn't even really count. But for Tampa, going through that grind not only produced hardware for the organization, again, the second Stanley Cup for the organization, but gave them the ability to walk taller, skate taller, played like it the entire season. And that semifinal against the Islanders, going 7 games.
That might have been the true Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, grinding that out. And then going into game 7, going, we're the champions. This is our thing. This is our jug. We're not going to let a group of hard workers that we know is, potentially overachieving beat us. And they got through that game 7, and they've run roughshod over the Habs. Seeing what the Tampa Bay Lightning have done en route to what we believe is going to be a second straight Stanley Cup, and that puts this team in the in the same company as the Blackhawks and Penguins. Yeah, Penguins for sure. Do you think the Leafs would have even had a chance against?
I think they would have fared better than Montreal had.
Okay.
Because Montreal is one dimensional in the sense that they have to play. I mean, look at their winning formula has been: get the first goal, play shutdown, counterattack, let the other team open themselves up, and then take advantage. That's great if you can get the first goal. They're 0-3 in terms of getting the first goal against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, I think their game plan is go balls out in the first 5-10 minutes, get the lead, and then they don't know what the hell to do. The Leafs, they have the ability to come back because they have good offensive players. I just don't know if they defensively. I think in a way, Tampa, if they were playing Toronto, would be playing more shutdown because they know that's a game that Toronto is not comfortable playing. They have to play it, but they're not comfortable playing it. So, let's just say this. If Montreal gets swept, the Leafs could lose in 5 or lose in maybe 6. But they're not in the same league as Tampa. Tampa is – now, this is the reality. This team is not going to be the same team next year. They've got cap issues, unless one of their players goes under season lengthy surgery, happened with Kucherov this year. They're going to lose a couple really important players. So,
but that's the point. That's the point. While the going is good, while everybody's on board, while the accounting can continue to make sense, go win your cups.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I don't understand the people out there, fans out there, that are pissed off at Tampa Bay for what they, I guess, deem as cap circumvention, because their payroll is like $98 million. Well, okay, Kucherov did have surgery. He was out. He was out.
Who's upset about it? Who's complaining? Who's contesting this?
It's the fan bases of the other teams whose management wasn't willing to do that. The one thing I'll say about the Leafs, they were going down the same road. I mean, they had to trade Nick Foligno through another team to get his salary to fit. They had players that were injured. I mean, the Leafs are willing to do that. The problem is that their one team is getting the results and the other team isn't.
Maybe if we think the Leafs would have fared better against the Lightning than the Habs, and this just came down to the top players not performing to their capability nor their expectation. Mm-hmm. As much as we have to eat this, it's not it's clearly not doesn't taste good, but we have to digest this. We have to confront that the Leafs the core guys just weren't mature enough at that point, and this may be a painful part of the process in achieving that ultimate success. If the Leafs had the talent to at least take Tampa, a little deeper than a team like the Habs, it's clearly because the Leafs just weren't mature enough to dig deep and put a team like the Habs away when they had the opportunity, because they clearly had the talent, and we know that looking back on on the forensics of that that fatal series against the Habs, it wasn't because the defense stunk or Jack Campbell not playing at least professional up to professional standards. It was the top guys just not rising to the occasion. So if you look at that, Mike, you have to chalk it up to and these are young cats with lots of talent, and if they went to other teams, I'm sure they would kill it there. They just weren't mature enough to stare that adversity in the face and overcome it.
It was a domino effect. I mean, in the end, it is what everybody in the chat is saying. The big guys didn't come up, but the contributing factors were the Tavares injury, and then Muzzin getting hurt in Game 6. I mean, it's like it just seemed like a domino effect that then it was putting the focus all on 2 or 3 players. And, the 2 big players, Matthews and Marner, didn't come through. But now we have to look forward into what's going to happen in the offseason and how they prepare for next season.
Okay, so that preparation has already begun. It will come under more of a microscope and a spotlight once this Stanley Cup final has completed. The preparations will be affected by the expansion draft and any early contracts that Kyle Dubas is able to solidify with players. Just happened with Wayne Simmons. We have to just right out of the gate accept and embrace Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. Well, Austin Matthews for sure, but Mitch Marner will return to the Toronto Maple Leafs. We can't every day do a podcast or get on social media ginning up a false expectation or this false idea that Mitch Marner could be dealt at any minute because he was the sole reason the Leafs didn't win a Stanley Cup. The changes are going to happen around these guys again the same way they did in the past. Those were successful changes with this core group having the capability. For as much as we're still pissed off about what has happened, we've got to look forward to what may happen next. And if it's all part of the maturation process, then dare I say, results in the future may be a little bit closer to being achieved than they have in the past.
Well, specifically on the Simmons, because we talked about the Spezza re-signing, and that was a fait accompli. We knew that Spezza was coming back. He had a great year. He wants to be part of the solution with the Leafs. He wants to be here when they carry the Stanley Cup. I don't know if he can play until he's 60, but that I admire Jason Spezza for his dedication in terms of wanting to lengthen his career, play in Toronto, and help the Leafs recruit players and help in terms of his performance on the ice because he had a great season last year. But Wayne Simmons, I heard some people criticizing that. I think it's a good deal. They gave him his cap hit is $900,000, which is not insignificant, but it's below the amount that can be buried in the American Hockey League if he all of a sudden drops off the face of the earth. And I think before the wrist injury, he was extremely effective. He was out 6 weeks. When he came back, he really couldn't fight anymore because of the wrist injury. He admitted in his media availability he was having trouble handling the puck, and he only scored 2 goals in, I think, 21 games after the injury. He had scored 2 goals in the game that he broke the wrist, and then he only scored 2 goals after that. So, but I think his physicality was always apparent. He was part of that in the playoffs. They need that. They need that veteran leadership. I think he worked well with the other players. So it's a good signing. It's they are going to need more of those, probably 2 or 3 more depth players. Now, I think they're going to mix in more youngsters this year. Nick Robertson's going to get in the mix. Maybe Joey Anderson in a 4th line role. Adam Brooks. But they need having Simmons there with Spezza on that 4th line with a young player. I think is a good thing, and they also can mix these guys in through an 82 game schedule. They may not play all those games.
So what can the Leafs do to improve, continue the the evolution of the organization, and not do anything that is controversial.
Well, I mean, see, the thing is, I mean, I think they need to do something impactful to change the narrative, because.
So how would you do that with that?
Well,
Like, I mean, we talked about moving out Nylander, and I know a lot of the fan base wants to move out Marner because, again, Nylander appears to be at a high because he had a great playoff. Marner appears to be at a low because he had a shitty playoff.
Well, this is where the problem is, because right now all you're hearing is, well, maybe they'll come back with this guy, or maybe they'll come back with that guy, even to the point that, Freddie Anderson is open to re-signing with the Leafs. Yeah, if the Leafs offer him probably the same amount of money that he was making before. Well, the Leafs can't really do that. I mean, and they don't really want to do that now. So it came out last week that Freddie Anderson is there's mutual interest there in him coming back, but they're not talking money yet. And if it's $5 million, it's not going to happen. That's
what impact, again, in terms of what impact does his return or not returning have on what we're talking about and what the Leafs are trying to accomplish?
Well, the impact is better the devil that you know than the devil that you don't. I mean, if they think
$5 million for a backup.
No. But what I'm saying is that the only way he would come back if he's not making $5 million. But the thing is that if they're saying they're open to him coming back, that means that they're reading the landscape of the goaltenders in the market, and they don't think that there's an improvement out there at less money. I mean, we've talked about, Braden Holtby and Darcy Kemper and a few other, names that might be out there either in free agency or by trade. But it depends on what they may have touched base with Vancouver, and Vancouver wants a second round pick for Braden Holtby, and he's only under contract for one more year. And Darcy Kemper, he's making $4 million, but he gets hurt all the time. And, that's the thing, is that they're weighing their options in terms of, what addition they can make or what situation they can have in goal and what would be the best. And if they could get Freddie Anderson at $3 million, like somebody was suggesting in the chat, then I think they would re-sign him for two.
He's okay watching games.
But I actually think the thing is, I mean, I think the realization here is that Jack Campbell may not be able to be a 60-game goaltender. That if they're going to go with Campbell as the future goalie, which they might, or if they're looking at a tandem here, then they're probably looking at, say Anderson or some other goalie playing 40 and Campbell playing 40. And that's, that you're seeing that more and more often. I mean, one of the things with Montreal this year is that, Jake Allen, because of injury, played more games than Carey Price. So, you saw Sorokin and Varlamov with the Islanders. You saw Shesterkin and Georgiev with the Rangers. So it's more common now with load management and all these analytics and things of that nature that backup goaltenders are not backups anymore. They're 1Bs, and they're going to play a lot more games.
It's quiet. It's quietly impactful. And the focus just hasn't been on the goaltending. Mm-hmm. And if the Kyle Dubas can quietly settle that down and have a tandem in place that the fan base will be comfortable with, whomever is in that given night, I'm sure they'll figure it out. I mean, what we're wondering is how changes made up front will relate to our mood when the next season starts, whether it's a belief we're in for more of the same, or after the debacle and the disappointment, dusting ourselves off emotionally and physically and spiritually, plus the new moves that have been made give us reason to believe that won't be for naught, and what's to come will allow us to forget the failure and embrace potential success ahead.
Well, we all know the well-known phrase that the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again. So it's like
that's us, because we repeat ourselves after every.
And that's why, like, I've been a proponent of trading Nylander, because not because he's not a good player, but because I think they need other things in different areas, and by trading him, it opens up the cap.
Can I ask you a question? And I know, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to add something here.
Yeah.
So there's a feeling Jack Campbell is not a 60+ game player over a regular season, meaning he can't be a starter, whether that's his
health,
and whether that's his inability to be locked in for a long period of time, just historically, him being typecast as a backup.
I think it's health related more than anything, but
for sure, health related. If completely healthy, could he be a number one guy? Does he have that capability? That has yet to be seen. He may get this opportunity now at Freddie Anderson off spelling him. With Nylander, does he have the capability to be a game 1 to game 82 superstar and pick up 80, 90 points and do what Marner did? Because Marner didn't take any time off in the regular season. Never has. The reason everyone hates his guts is because he's not a playoff performer. Austin Matthews didn't rise to the next level either, but it's Marner that's really getting shit on because Austin Matthews, he is a generational talent, we believe, and he is a guy that has a lot of fans and he has a good reputation in social media. Marner does not. With Nylander, there's a belief that, just put him alongside Matthews. He'll easily fit in and take over the minutes that Marner had. Is William Nylander a full season superstar? Yeah, he hasn't shown us that he can be that guy. And if he were to take over for Marner, because Marner's been ditched magically for 3 players that would fit in perfect to the Leafs lineup, isn't that a lot of pressure to put this guy under?
Well, if he's capable of that, as you say, 1 through 82 superstar or high level player, I haven't seen it. He's a very good player, and he has streaks where
that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, he has streaks where he is unbelievable, but then he disappears, or then he makes defensive giveaways. Now,
it's unbelievable though. This unbelievable, we've never seen this kind of hockey from a guy. It's
just playing at the high end.
No, again, but I know that the word it's outrageous.
But playing at the high end of his talent,
I know.
But the thing is, you have to also say that for all the great, Marner was named first team NHL All-Star right winger, the best right winger in the game, over Mark Stone, and what happened in the playoffs? He didn't show up. So, it's like with Leaf fans,
Matthews wasn't much better.
And he was really right. But I'm just saying,
everybody loves Matthews, so it's okay. Remember, it's such a contradiction. It's ridiculous, man.
Right.
Anyway.
But no, this is the thing that we're going to have to track over the next few weeks, because the next 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to have the expansion draft, you're going to have the NHL draft. There are going to be a number of trades as soon as the Stanley Cup final ends. You're going to see a bunch of trades, likely brought on by cap situations and by the expansion draft, and then free agency starts on July 28th. There is talk right now, the Anderson stuff that I mentioned. The contracts that happened over the last week might be an indicator of where the Leafs could go regarding Zach Hyman. The Ryan Nugent-Hopkins deal in Edmonton and the Joel Eriksson-Ek deal in Minnesota. Teams were loath, unless it was somebody like Connor McDavid, to give out an 8-year max contract. Now the reality is, with the cap being flat the next 3 or 4 years, to get the AAV down to a low enough amount that makes sense for teams, they're trading off term for AAV. So Nugent Hopkins, who was making $6 million on his last deal, is making 5.1 on his new deal with Edmonton. What they did was they gave him the 8th year, they gave him the no move clause, and they used that 8th year to spread out the AAV and lower it to make it an amount less than what Draisaitl and McDavid are making, and now it gives them room to make some moves. And the same thing with Eriksson-Ek. He had one good year. He's a young player, 24 years old. He scored 19 goals last year. Now he's making 5.25 for 8 years. The cap hit would have been more if they had signed him for 5 or 6, but to give him 8, it spreads it out. Now, why I'm bringing this up, Hyman Zach Hyman is an important player on this team, very important. But the reality here is the Leafs cannot pay him $5 million. He's a role player. He's an excellent role player. He's a two-way player. He's a penalty killer. He's a good complement to Matthews and Marner, all those things. But they can't – this is the problem with the $40 million four-player core. You can't pay another player $5 million when you're paying Riley and Muzzin and Brody. There's just so much with the cap being flat. The only way that the Leafs can maybe fit this in is by offering Hyman a year more than he's being offered by somebody else. If he's being offered $5 million, I did the calculation. If he's offered $5 million for 5 years, which is $25 million, and the Leafs could offer him 4.2 at 6 years, and he's getting the same amount of money. So, I mean, that's where this term for AAV situation is going to break down, and players might be willing to take less, but not really to stay in the places where they want to stay. And it's all a question. Zach Hyman has made $2.25 million the last 4 years. He's been a great Leaf. Nobody begrudges him going out and getting the best offer that he can get. If he does, I wish him all the luck in the world. But if the Leafs can offer him the same amount of money and they just lower the AAV, and I know that he has said in the past that he wants to stay in Toronto, then that might be a mechanism for the Leafs bringing him back.
What value do you think management puts on him?
I think a lot because, first of all, Kyle Dubas has known Zach Hyman.
There's that.
Going back to when Zach Hyman was playing, I think, I don't know if it was junior B or some lower level hockey before he went to the University of Michigan. And then he was his advisor because you can't have an agent if you're in the NCAA. He was his advisor. He was, I assume he was the one who got the Leafs to trade for his rights from Florida back in the day. But now what value do they put on this is Zach Hyman being a part of this team, taking that next step? Right, and then here's the issue. As much as they love Zach Hyman, as much as they appreciate his worth to the team and the way he plays the game, he's a 29-year-old forward who's had 2 knee injuries, and he plays a rough style of game. Yep. When he starts to lose a step, then that's going to make him less effective. So they have to balance that with the importance that he has to the team now. 5 years down the line, this might be a bad contract. But you can't think – do you think Edmonton's thinking about 5, 6, 7 years down the line with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? They're thinking about the here and the now, needing the player, and then you worry about that when the cap hopefully is going up to $100 million in 6 years. So, and it's not only Hyman, it's also Morgan Riley. Morgan Riley's entering the final year of his contract. I think it was Pierre LeBrun that said that there is mutual interest. Riley wants to stay in Toronto. The Leafs want him. But again, he's 27. I would give him, if it's a defenseman, I'm giving him an 8-year deal. I have to. How are you going to replace Morgan Riley? Right. That's the whole issue. It's like, to replace him with a Dougie Hamilton will cost you $8 million a year. So, and that's the thing, right? We, a lot of times we just want to take the guys that we know and that we're getting bored of and replace them with new guys who are about the same or perhaps even are give less, but they're new and they're shiny. Who doesn't like a good trade and who doesn't like a good signing? The thing is, the Leafs have kind of committed all of these big signings and the big splash. Those things have been done. We've been a part of them. We've celebrated them. The key now is it's constructing the rest of the team around these cats, and where we have to reconcile the process forward with how things have gone in the past is it's not like the Leafs have done this wrong except for maybe overpaying guys, but
the Leafs aren't the first team to overpay big stars based on previous years. The Leafs brought in complementary players for their top guys. They tried to solidify the defense, which seemed to work last season. The goaltending was what it was. They found money in Jack Campbell. The stars who were paid all the money and who had all of the support built around them did not come through.
Right.
So we have to chalk this up, as painful as it is to accept, to another season of growth, another season of failure that you hope will amount to success down the line, because these guys will get sick of fucking failing every season. So here we are in this position now, wondering how the hell we alter it and tweak it to make it better. I'm telling you right now, the way this team is at this point is not going to look dissimilar to the team that starts the next season. There will be some changes, and Mike, you highlighted the whole conundrum with Zach Hyman. He's probably going to end up on another team based on his year, his want to get paid, his ability to get paid based on what he's done. Mm-hmm. But a rough and tumble guy at 29. I'm sure there's another player coming through the pipeline that the Leafs can bring in to fill the minutes that Zach filled, or perhaps there's a player within the organization that they can groom to take Hyman's place. Just a few more minutes, Mike. You can lay it out for us. OG's Converse, thank you so much for the chat. We see you. Mike and I are just getting caught up. We're like long lost buddies who want to exhaust a lot of emotion and a lot of conversation. So that's what we're doing. Mike, have at it.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, if the sad reality of them being unable to re-sign Hyman occurs, then I would think that there's talk about the Leafs being interested. There was talk about the Leafs being interested in Connor Garland from Arizona before the deadline, because he was making less than $800,000 last year, and he's the leading scorer for Arizona. He's not the same type of player as Hyman, but he's a very good player. And there's been some chatter out there about him being a target of the Leafs. I mean, the thing is, if Hyman leaves, then it may be Nick Foligno who they re-signed, because the talk is that it was assumed Foligno was going to go back to Columbus. But
what would Foligno? I was about to say Salino and Barnes. But did you ever have them represent you, Mike, back in your
yeah all the time. Not when they're flying airplanes though, but
the turf wars of North Tonawanda in the 80s. But wouldn't Foligno make the same kind of money that Hyman would be expecting?
No, I mean that's the thing. It's like Foligno is 33 years old. He's coming off a year with where he was traded from Columbus, where he was injured. Now clearly from the indications out there, he wants to re-sign with Toronto, because there was talk about him going back to Columbus, but Columbus,
that's a rebuild right there.
Yeah, clearly with them hiring Brad Larson, and more than likely them losing, more players that he may not see a future there. He wants to win a Stanley Cup. He's never won a Stanley Cup. So again, add that to the group.
So sign with the Leafs,
right? But
he's got injury issues too. So,
he's got the ability. He's got the ability to play both wing and center. So he's got some versatility there. And we haven't talked about the expansion draft, but the assumption here, and it'll all depend on what the Leafs do in terms of protecting, whether they go 8 skaters and 1 goalie, or 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie. I think they're going to go 8 skaters, because they don't want to risk losing Justin Hall, who's making $2 million for another 2 years. They don't want to risk losing him for nothing. I think they're going to go, so protect the top 4 defensemen, protect the core 4 forwards and Campbell, and that will expose, guys like Simmons and Spezza, but more than likely Seattle's not going to take them because they're older, or I think they know, like Simmons signed to play at home in Toronto. Mm-hmm. Spezza threatened to retire if he was claimed off of waivers last year. They don't want those guys. They want younger guys. They want guys that they can build with. Dave Haxtell is the head coach in Seattle. He coached Travis Dermott.
Mm-hmm.
The possibility they pick Dermott because he's a young defenseman. He's only 24 years old. I think the likelier chances is that they claim Alex Kerfoot. If they claim Kerfoot, that will be one of their top 3 centers. He's from the Pacific Northwest. He's from Vancouver. The Leafs might even offer a little bit of a sweetener because that's $3.5 million. Not that he's not an effective player, but they need the one thing that I keep saying about them trading Nylander or trading somebody. Mm-hmm. Is they have no cap flexibility at all. Mm-hmm. The trade that Nashville made with LA a couple days ago, where they traded Arvidsson to the Kings for a couple draft picks, that was purely because they had a $4.5 million cap hit, and they needed to clear space to make moves. So that the Leafs probably, if they don't get Kerfoot claimed by Seattle, may end up trading Kerfoot just to get flexibility.
Intriguing. Guys, I'm not conceding the Leafs' ability to improve this team between now and when the puck drops on the next season. But the way it's looking, we are going to have to grin and bear the core returning and get behind them once again. When the playoffs started, other than people who just traditionally dislike Mitch Marner, there was a sense of optimism that this was going to be a big playoff for guys like him and Austin Matthews. They just didn't come through. 2, 3, 4 more goals from those guys. And the presence of 91, the Leafs most likely beat the Habs. They didn't. They fell apart. They shit the bed. They were afraid of their own shadow. They lost their nerve. If these cats can't grow from that, another failure, more disappointment as they enter their prime, then shame on them. But there's really nothing else we can do or expect. I'm not saying, Mike, that this team is effed. It's probably going to be a top 10 team next year based on all the talent. And if everybody stays healthy, remember, these guys are great players. And the idea that Mitch Marner, he's only a regular season guy. Well, guess what? We're going to have 82 regular season games to endure him between the start of the season and the next opportunity for him to prove his worth. And I would rather him, number 16, come out and put up another 3-digit point campaign and, play with reckless abandon if they can. And Austin Matthews win another Rocket Richard. And then we'll get to that point. But I'm telling you, Marner's going to be back. Matthews, obviously. Tavares, has hope for his health. And that's something we have not addressed. The guy was concussed. There could be some lingering issues there for him. We may never see the same JT again. And then with William Nylander, sure, his contract seems movable. But what the hell are you going to bring back? And I just don't think Kyle Dubas, at this point of his tenure with the Leafs and with so much pressure on him, turning away from the player of wax, that he's put everything, almost, his entire organizational philosophy into. Last word to you, Mike.
Yeah, it seems to fly in the face of all the indications out there. From guys like Elliot Friedman and CJ, Chris Johnston, that there was some impactful, consequential move that's going to be made. It's I don't know how they make that if they bring back all 4 forwards. If they, I don't see it. Are they going to trade Morgan Riley? Well, he wants to be here and they want him here. So you would not think that. And I don't see them trading any of the other defensemen. So that's where I'm a little confused. Now they could trade a young player and bring in somebody and have the team retain salary or things of that nature. That's, there are going to be so many cap calisthenics that'll be done to fit things in. But I will be very curious to see what moves are made. We're seeing already Duncan Keith may go to Edmonton. Whether something like that happens with the Leafs, not Duncan Keith, but saying a veteran player coming in, somebody with 3 Stanley Cups like Keith who could show them the way. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just know that last year didn't work because of everything we discussed. I don't see bringing back most of the same team, it having a different effect. That might be the opinion of, that they bring back Galchenyuk and they bring back Foligno and they bring back Bogosian and they just add a couple kids that will make the difference. I don't know. I mean, like I said, repeating the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same result. So
it's not like management can make wholesale changes to this roster. This roster has to change itself. Has to change its perspective, change the way it operates. And that change comes through experience. That change comes through maturity. That change comes through opportunity. They've had the experience. You're expecting maturity, and the opportunity is ahead of it. And we'll be here to discuss every little thing that happens. Guys, oakridgeford.com. If you're local, lots of great pre-owned cars. Not too much new stock right now, but it looks like the floodgates are going to be opening right across the auto industry here in the next few weeks, few months. So I can certainly help you out with that. We do appreciate your support with the podcast. We're going to do some more swag coming up real soon. I don't know if you guys have any ideas on colors or designs or something like that. Send that to community. Mike and I will be doing a show every Sunday, but depending on what happens at 40 Bay, we may throw a midweek show into the mix. We're not going anywhere if you don't see us for a couple of days. It's because, like the Leafs and like everyone else, we're trying to take a bit of a break too. But Leafs Convo forever, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to do as many shows as we can, but with my cosmopolitan lifestyle, I don't know if I can fit it in.
And I see you at every single Blue Jays game.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, it's funny because I've gone to 2 Blue Jays games in Buffalo, the Astros game, which I basically melted at because I was sitting in the four rows away from the field, and I had to go to the first Yankees Blue Jays game. And the thing is, they're never going to be back in Buffalo, knock on wood. Hopefully there's never another pandemic. The fact that they played 2 years in Buffalo and we've had as many major league games as we have has been fantastic. And now fans have been able to see it, and to be able to see the Yankees and the Blue Jays play at what's now called Salem Field, it's been named a different number of different names, is fantastic. But the reality is that the clock is ticking. When the border opens and the Ontario government allows more than 5,000 fans at Rogers Centre, they're going to be back there, and we have to enjoy it while it lasts.
You used to go to all those Buffalo Braves games too, right?
Oh yeah, I was a big fan of the Braves when I was 9 years old.
OG's Converse. Thanks so much, Mike. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.